Hi everyone, it's Nicole and I have another layout and I'm just showing you a few things that I think I may be using. Some wood veneers, some stamps, some washi tape, and a lot of scraps from the Studio Calico February front row kit. This is time number 3 that I'm taping this, so hopefully it does work out. And I had a lot of problems with this page. I really didn't know how I was going to do this page. It took me 2 hours and 20 minutes to complete. And this is page 14 out of 50 for that Facebook challenge. And it's also my page 14 for the February kit. And at first, I think I'm going to use those bags from Studio Calico and I'm going to ink it up. And I do ink it up with 2 different colors from Jenny Bolin, chewing gum, and soap powder. But once it's all done, I really don't like it, so I end up just trashing that and going some other way. And just before that, I had taken my Mr. Huey Mist, Pretty Pink, and I had splattered it diagonally across the page. So like I said, I do go through the whole process of inking this up, and I really don't like it. But while my page is drying up from the mist, I do work on the page directly on my mat, because it does take like 5 minutes or so for that page to dry up. So I didn't want to just waste the time. So I'm using my black mat as sort of my background, and I'm kind of playing with layers and stuff and seeing what I might be doing with this page. So at this point, I'm just looking at different washi tape to see if I would like it, or different, papers for the background. So I do decide on that flower strip that I had left from the kit. So I'm going to cut off the branding strip and start working on that page. I do take out that little heart paper from, it was the 3x4 cards by Pebbles, and I really like that. It really matches the page, or coordinates with the page really well. It has some pink and some reds, so I'm going to use that as accents on my page. And that red and pink embossed paper, that was one of my favorites from this kit, and I'm going to use basically the rest of that paper on this layout. I believe I only have like 1/4 of an inch of that paper left. So I'm going through again all my stuff, my wood veneers, and trying to figure out what exactly I'm going to do. And I'm looking at my dies that I took out to see what else I could do, and all the different stamps that I took out. And this is a picture of us at Central Park. I love to plan stuff. Like when I go on vacation, everything is planned to a T. But I forgot one little detail. I forgot to check. I just assumed that the museum would stay open late, like 8 or 9 o'clock. So we went to the Empire State Building first, and then when we took the subway across town to go to the museum, we were looking in the book and it said the museum closed at 6 o'clock, and it was like 5. So there was no reason for us to go and just, it takes way longer than that to go through the museum. So we decided to get off still where the museum was, and then we just walked through Central Park, and we spent about 3 to 4 hours just walking through Central Park, and it was beautiful, and we had such a good time. And so that's sort of what the page is about, talking about our walk through Central Park. And I'm glad that we got to do it, because there was no other time during our stay in New York that we were able to do it. Everything else was so jam-packed that really it was the only time that we could have done it. So it was just perfect. So at this point, I decide to use one of those doilies that I bought from Studio Calico, and I put it in 3 different spots on the page, and I use my Mr. Huey Mist Pretty Pink, and I spray it in 3 spots. And at this point, I got one of my stamps from My Mind's Eye, and it's of a doily, and I want to stamp it on vellum. So I take out my Stays On ink, and I ink up the stamp and stamp it out 3 times, and 2 of them are the same because the first one didn't come out really well, and then a different one. And then I take the vellum paper and I put it behind me to dry, and that's where it stayed because I totally forgot about it. but I've now since then put it in my scraps, so I'm sure I'll use it on another layout. But that's where it stayed for the rest of the layouts, so I totally forgot that I had stamped that out. So you won't be seeing it on this page. So I took a few minutes to stamp that out. So again, this is layout 3, or the third time that I do the voice recorder, so it's going to be hard for me to remember what I've already said. But this layout seems to have taken a long time, and even at that I sped it up times 8 and it's still 18 minutes. Like it just seemed like it took forever. And I think part of the reason is the first part of the layout, I worked on it after a night shift, so I worked all night from 6:30 at night till 6:30 in the morning. Got home about 6:45, and then stayed up for an hour to try to, so that I'm tired enough to go to sleep. But I think my brain was exhausted and it just wasn't coming together. So I went to bed, and then when I got up, I finished the layout. So at this point, I decide on that arrow paper that came in the kit, and I love that paper. And at first I leave that little branding strip on the bottom, and if it would have been the right pink, I would have left it there, but it was just the wrong pink. It was just a different tone than the spray that I used for my mist, so I cut it off. And then I'm going to start looking through some stuff, and I decide on that embossed paper, and I only had maybe 3 inches left of that embossed paper, and I use it. I cut off a strip for the top, a strip for the bottom that I just cut by hand, so it's not even close to being straight, but that's what I wanted. And then where the flower paper is, I decide that it looks it ends too abruptly, so I want something to separate it. So I'm going to end up putting 2 strips of that embossed paper right there too. So I'm going through some more of my dies, trying to figure out what else I can use, and I look at that blue and white polka dot paper, thinking, what else could I put in there to try to break up that color. And I do end up spending a lot of time on those layers. And then I decide on just using that basic gray chevron paper and the flower paper, the embossed paper, and that little heart paper that I had taken out for another page, and it's from Pebbles. So I end up again detail cutting one of those little hearts that are on that paper to put on my little girl, and I'm going to glue it down with some quick dry adhesive. And that heart is so small that I don't even wait. I put the glue right on and glue it down, because I figured that I was going to lose that little heart somewhere and I'd have to cut it out again. So at this point, I'm still, like I said, looking through the stuff, looking at my washi tape to see what else I could use to add more layers, more interest to the page. And at this point, I decide, okay, just start gluing stuff down, and maybe, it'll come together. So I start looking at some ribbon to see if I could put the ribbon there. And actually, it doesn't look too bad on the recording here, but in person, the 2 pinks were totally different. So I decided not to use that ribbon. I looked at that washi tape, and I found that washi tape was just, I don't know, just not what I wanted. It would have looked okay, but where the background paper was brown, I didn't want the black right up against it. So that's where I decided to use that embossed paper, and I put about 1/2 inch to 1 inch to the top and the bottom. And then you saw me cutting out that strip, and that is going right to the bottom. And then I'm going to start gluing my layers. And I believe this is the point that I just said, okay, this is not working out. Go to bed and get some sleep, and come back in a little bit. So at this point, this is where I come back, and then after a few hours sleep, and then decide on working on the page again. So I cut that basic gray pattern paper in half instead of using 2 pieces. I mean, most of it is behind the photos anyway. So I just use my quick dry adhesive and stick it in behind the pattern paper. And then I'm going to play again with that little heart paper, figuring out, trying to figure out where I can put it. I do end up putting it in 3 different spots. And then I have this die cut that's from, and it's a banner with little hearts. It's one of my favorites. It's from La La Land Crafts, and it's called Heart Banner. So I'm going to die cut it out of that blue paper, and I'm going to put it to the top left. And then I thought, well, maybe while I have my Cuttlebug out, I should die cut some hearts. So I do end up die cutting some hearts from the same paper, but I don't end up using it on this page. I'll just put it aside, and I'm sure I'll use it on another layout someday. So that die cut actually cuts out the hearts. So I didn't want different colors in behind those hearts, so I do end up gluing some pink paper in behind each heart so that it's uniform and has all the same color. So I'm just going to put it to the top left, and I'm going to leave it there and let it dry up, because then I'm going to do some stitching on it after the fact once it's dried. So I'm still looking for what layers I could put in and trying to figure out what else I could bring into this page to give it dimension and layers. So I start punching out butterflies, and I punched it out of that blue and white paper, and then I pulled out my hearts and arrows wood veneers, and I took out a few of those. I punched a circle out of that heart paper. I had punched out a couple of circles, but I didn't find it looked good. So I just put one circle on one side, and then the other side I'm going to put a square of that heart paper, and then I do end up putting a label in behind the circle one, so it would have different shapes and stuff. And then that washi tape I absolutely love. It's by Webster's Page, Alison Kreft, and I'm going to end up putting it in about 4 different spots on the layout. And now I'm going to start gluing down my layers at every place that I had an embellishment. So at the top, I had some of that basic gray paper, some of those labels. I'm going to put some of that washi tape to the top right, and I'm going to put some washi tape right above the photo, and I'm going to put a heart wood veneer. And this is where I decide that that banner looked kind of plain. So I outlined each heart, and then I also outlined each banner with a stitch. And then I'm going to start gluing everything down. And of course, I took out some of my twine, and I'm going to put it not everywhere where there's a butterfly, but in 3 spots. I'm going to put it with my little girl, my wood veneer girl, and with the banner and the top layer. So I'm looking at some My Mind's Eye word stickers, and I'm going to be using them very shortly. So I had a few butterflies that were from the blue and white paper, and I decided I want some solid butterflies too. So I just kind of take the Hero Arts ink pool and the chewing gum from Jelly and Bolin and just kind of smooshed it on some vanilla cardstock and punched out a few butterflies. And I'm just going to glue them throughout the page. And I really like the effect that the spray doily is having. Like, it really looks like there's a doily in behind the clusters, and I really like that. So there was quite a few butterflies. I wanted it, the title of the page is going to be feeling a little quirky, so kind of free and having fun and just enjoying the wonderful hot day that it was. And we were, it was our first day in New York, and we were having a blast and not a care in the world. We were just really having a good time. So that's how I wanted the page to go, sort of, lots of butterfly and carefree, and I hope that's what I portrayed when I did this page. And then I put a geotag right above my picture because everybody else is looking forward and I'm the only one that's looking backwards, and I'm kind of, being silly and doing the peace sign because my friend called out my name. And so I took a few of those words and I put silly and mom and funny and love at the top right cluster. Because as much as my kids say, oh, mom, you're so silly, you know, I know they love it that I'm silly and have fun with them and stuff because they tell me they love it that, they say that their friends always say that they love being around me and her dad because we're always having, fooling around and having fun and enjoying being around the kids. I always say we had 3 kids, me and my husband, but we have about 8 kids, and it's all our friends, our kids' friends. A lot of them look at us like we were their parents. We've taken their friends on trips and, on family vacations, we've taken their friends and just, at tournaments and stuff. And we just like having our kids around. And if they, love having their friends around, then that's okay with us. So first I was going to just make the title Feeling Quirky, and then I found it was sort of just too short, so I wanted to put Feeling a Little Quirky. And then I couldn't decide if I wanted it at that top right cluster or right in the middle. So I thought, well, maybe if I take a picture of it with my iPhone, I'll be able to see what it looks like on a photo, and then I can make up my mind. And it worked. I really liked it at that top right corner. And I think it's because it was kind of leaving everything in that cluster. So nothing was kind of coming out of it at the bottom, because really there's no embellishments at the bottom. So I didn't want that kind of sticking out and kind of feeling weird and funny, because the only thing at the bottom is that doily, and that's sprayed. It's not even like a 3-dimensional embellishment. So where I did spray that, it left a blank spot. So I thought that would be a perfect place to do my journaling. So that's where I'm going to do my journaling, is in that doily. So I'm just going to show you a few close-up of this page, and the page is done. So thanks for watching. Bye.